most people that read about the American Civil War know about Andersonville, the prison camp that's in Georgia. And there are a lot of bad prison camps that were out there, prisoner of war camps during the American Civil War, but a lot of people don't come to visit or don't even think about Belle Isle. Today, we're going to go across that bridge right there on foot and head over to the infamous Belle Isle. That was a prisoner of war camp that the Confederate Army had out here to house Union soldiers, and it wasn't doing much housing. We're going to go check it out and see what it has to offer. If you were taken captive during the American Civil War as a United States soldier, chances are you heard of Belle Isle or you had been there. Belle Isle housed the enlisted soldiers primarily out here as prisoners of war, and the conditions were just as bad as anywhere else. They were out exposed in the blistering cold and during the hot summer months. Now to get to the Isle, we have to cross over the street here. We have to head across a footbridge that takes us across the James River. That would be, see if I can get that in this frame, that bridge right up there. We're gonna head across here and take you with us. I absolutely love the walk up here on this bridge. primarily because it's probably the only way that you will actually get a solid look at the James River without driving over it, from the perspective of maybe the ferry that goes across. And you're standing here in what I like to call the time capsule of Richmond. Out here on this water, you can see bridge pylons that were actually burned during the evacuation of the American Civil War. You can see the current of the rapids where a lot of energy is made. And of course, you can take it across to Belle Isle, the actual prisoner of war camp. So it's kind of an amazing view up here, an amazing walk. And on most days it's pretty peaceful. The scenery out there is pretty peaceful too. Although you do have to be careful at certain times of the day on that island. July 1862, Lucien Wells decided to enlist in the Union Army in Connecticut. Soon he would find himself in the Battle of Antietam. That very same day that the battle commenced, his mother, thinking of him, wrote a letter to him saying, "You may think because you do not hear from me after that I have forgotten you. No, Lucien, your mother has not. I think of you in your long, weary marches, in your tents, or your lodgings on the ground, and I pray God this dreadful war may soon be over. Good night, my dear boy. May heaven protect you." Shortly after the Battle of Antietam, Lucien sat down and wrote to his mother, "Dear mother, I was in the battle bringing off the wounded, the balls flying thick and fast. The nearest I had one hit was through my hat." Lucien undoubtedly saw a lot of crazy things out there at Antietam. The 14th Connecticut was heavily involved, but him being a drummer boy, he probably wouldn't have had a lot to do with combat out there, other than supplying help to the field and trying to carry off the wounded, like he wrote about in his letters home. And it's kind of remarkable that we have any of these articles available to read about the young boy and his crusade, if you will, with the 14th Connecticut. But his mother was constantly worried sick about him, writing back to him over and over again, asking him if it was okay, how he was getting along, and what health was like. Eventually, he would write back and tell his mother that he was having a hard time with his feet. On January 19th of 1863, his mother wrote, "If you love your mother, for my sake, do not expose your life unnecessarily." So again, she was extremely worried about this young boy being out there fighting. And it's not real clear whether or not young Lucien even had been given the right to do so, or express written consent from his parents to go off to war. But somehow, the young boy found himself in the thick of things, fighting right here at Antietam for not only his life, but to fight along the 14th Connecticut in the United States Army. The estimates of how many Union prisoner of war soldiers that were out here is all over the place. I've seen estimates of up to 30,000, and at any given time 1,500 to 1,800 out here, with the death toll in the couple of thousand. We'll go out here and see these signs and see what information the city of Richmond's actually put out here about this prisoner of war camp. Eventually, young Lucien finds his way to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and he's fighting with the 14th Connecticut there as well. And he writes in graphic detail about the actions that happened there on July 3rd. And he writes, "This morning, they were ordered 4 companies to charge a barn that was occupied by the rebels. They done it. Not a man faltered, and they succeeded reaching the barn. Pretty soon, Brigadier rode by and said he wanted the 14th to charge a house the rebel sharpshooters occupied. Here was when they got cut so." In describing that situation, he talked about the 14th Connecticut and how it was mowed down during those last desperate moments there in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And no doubt he probably saw some pretty severe combat at that time. On October 13th, at the Battle of Bristoe Station, a young boy was captured and was sent to Belle Isle. In his last words, he wrote home to his mother, "I would like to get paroled, and then I could get a chance to come home and see you once more." That would not be the case for young Lucien. In the spring of 1864, Lucien came down with a bad case of diarrhea, and he died soon. Later, his mother would search for answers as to what happened to him, and on May 21st of 1865, Patrick Carroll wrote to her, "He often told me that he was afraid he would never see home." So one thing you'll notice about Belle Isle when you come out here, we have a nice pathway to walk down, lots of good grass and all that good stuff to get around on, but hidden and tucked away underneath all this stuff, with a clear-cut path where people walk all over it all the time, is an actual earthwork that's out here as part of Belle Isle. This is a fortification that was put here during the American Civil War. It's covered up by grass now. A long time ago, that portion of this field used to be cleared out so that you could clearly see them. And the old signage that's out here does not talk about the American Civil War history that took place here. The amount of suffering that happened here. You can actually stand here and look up underneath that bridge and see this giant that's built in on top of Belle Isle, but it's kind of hard to imagine this place as a Civil War prisoner of war camp. And we're going to walk around and see if there are any more ruins left out here that we can see from the American Civil War, and see if there's actually any information at all that talks about what happened here. So I finally found a sign out here that talks about Belle Isle as a prisoner of war camp. It also talks about it being a fortification for large guns that were protecting the James River out here for a while until it became a prisoner of war camp. And according to this sign, again, numbers are all over the place, upwards of 10,000 soldiers, mostly enlisted soldiers, were held out here as prisoners of war from the United States Army. And at the time of the surrender of the Confederacy, 20,000 soldiers had passed through here at least. And at any given time, it looks like designed to hold 3,000 prisoners. It was packed at times with as many as 10,000. So yeah, this place was overcrowded. It was not quite to the level of Andersonville, but it was pretty bad. So here's that sign we were talking about just a second ago. It talks about the soldiers, the 10,000 and 20,000. And then it has this neat picture here, which I'll put up on the screen for you to see, but it kind of gives you sort of a view of what this place would have looked like if you were standing here during the American Civil War, with all the tents being throughout here. And every day you could wake up and you could see the city of Richmond over there, including the government buildings where the officials of the Confederacy were going in and out of those buildings. Citizens would actually send over care packages and come over to try to help the soldiers that are over here suffering. That not a lot is talked about when it comes to that, about how the mostly Southern women were coming across that river to actually help these soldiers out who they knew were out here sleeping in mildewed, molded tents, raggedy, wet clothes, and really just suffering out here as a result of the weather and the lack of food and things that these soldiers needed to live out here an army life. I mean, at that time also, the Confederate Army itself did not have sustenance for its own army. But imagine being a prisoner out here, trapped on this island, not able to get across or get out of here, and the people that are holding you prisoner can't even feed you properly. And you're just stuck on this island. Sweltering heat during the summer, blistering cold during the winter. The trees are all torn down, so these trees wouldn't have been here. And the wind would have just cut right through this area because of that river out there. Not to mention the cold air coming off of that river when it snows. I can only imagine how painful it must have been. All right, so we're going to push on from that sign, go around the corner here, and see if there's any more fortifications for us to take a look at, which I think I'm actually crossing over one right now. So this location has become a habitat. It's also become a dirt bike path across 150, 160-year-old mounds of dirt put here in the American Civil War. Not much preservation out here as far as the Civil War is concerned. It's mostly just a place for people to ride their bikes and hang out. So I came around the corner and I saw this very interestingly shaped building out here. And it looks like it was a gift at one point in time because there's a plaque on the outside. Belle Isle Environmental Education Center, donated to the city of Richmond by the Virginia Environmental Endowment Private Richmond Foundation Support and Richmond Renaissance Incorporated, 1993. Well, 1993 has looked a lot better. This is pretty terrible. And so here's the caution tape to keep you out. It's funny, we expect to see ruins from the 1700s and 1800s. We don't expect to see ruins from 1993. It's pretty crazy. I'm about to walk through some ruins right now. Interesting. And looks like we have some nice artwork here on the walls inside of this historic building. Oh man. See, if we don't preserve our history and talk about things and have discussion, we are doomed to make certain mistakes. We definitely don't learn from them or help each other out. Destroying items of history is really not a good look for any society. I have the fortunate habit of walking up on wild animals, mostly deer. No different out here. This island is pretty much a habitat. It's pretty cool. Saw some deer going off in this direction over here. There they are. Right over my shoulder. just hanging out. I don't know if you can see them over there. Kind of walking around. Right next to history. The original owners of this island, I guess you could say. This place turned into a manufacturing and industrial area after the American Civil War. So there's ruins out here from that, which is what we were walking around just then, the brick structures that are crumbled to the ground. And that's also where those deer are hanging out right now. It's pretty cool. So I'd like to welcome you to Belle Isle, a location where thousands of Union soldiers suffered on a regular basis. Somewhere right here in the middle of this skate park. So I just recently went up to Winchester, Virginia to check out the battlefield up there. And part of that video is going to talk about a man who helped preserve that battlefield so that we could all enjoy it and talk about the battle and the sacrifices of the soldiers there and the fight that took place. Those people preserve history from things like this. Skate camp. A park to ride your bicycles and your skateboards on. Destroying history that's been here for a long time and not telling the story of the people that died out here. There was a lot of soldiers that died out here as prisoners of war on these fields. Starvation, deprived of a place to live, of warmth, of food. They died right back here on these fields, on the very place in Richmond where we have a skate park. Preservation is about preserving that history from things like that, and from large parking lots. So here we are, more mounds of dirt that we were talking about earlier. The faint structures still surviving somehow through all of the destruction that is out here of this historic ground. And of course, if time and people didn't destroy it, I'm sure that the installation of this large bridge did work on it as well. You can't preserve everything, so you have to take it with a grain of salt and just be glad that the land is still here, that you can come out here and visit and see this place and read up about the sacrifices of the soldiers that died out here as prisoners of war. Can you imagine the transformation that's taken place out here in those years? I mean, this was just a bare bones island that had some dirt mounds on it with guns placed in it at one point in time. And then the industrial boom happens. Every inch of land in this city starts to turn into a quagmire of brick and mortar, steel. And look at the structure over here. I've been underneath that structure a couple of times, and every now and again you run into people that you don't want to run into. Dilapidated structure still existing here. No real signage out here to talk about any of this stuff. And of course, there's only one sign that I could see so far about the American Civil War. Men from Massachusetts were out here, Pennsylvania, all the different states that are in the Union. Confederate soldiers were out here guarding them, depriving them because they didn't have anything to have themselves. This was a terrible place to be during the American Civil War. It seems it might have been forgotten. We're going to go down here to the riverfront, see how close we can get to the water. See if we can get a nice view here at Belle Isle of the water. Caution kids, don't try this at home. Yeah, no, there's a whole lot down here we can't get next to. Check this out. Looks like the ruins of some kind of a bridge structure. And then you can see bridge pylon out here. Let's see if we can move back around. Brick structure and pylon right there. And then all of this debris that's kind of collected up over here from the river itself. Standing on that stuff might actually be a death sentence. So it's pretty neat to see though. I'll flip this camera around so you can see it for yourself. Well, as we walk away from Belle Isle back there, I don't know, I'm so grateful that there was some preservation in other places, because had we allowed other battlefields and other historical significant places to turn into that, it would have been depressing. I still think a lot can be done to help this place and to tell the story of the soldiers that died. A lot needs to be done. It's honestly sad to think someone's father probably passed away back there, or brother, and they're not even represented properly. over as a part of another footbridge out here in Richmond, you can get a closer look of the evacuation route from 1865. And you can see the pylons that are out here of the old evacuation route, the old bridge that used to be out here, just underneath that Manchester Bridge. That bridge was built in the 1970s, and the one underneath it was here during 1865 and was destroyed. Also, it was the same bridge that probably carried Jefferson Davis into Richmond when he was coming into town to become the one and only President of the Confederate States. So here's a better look at what we're talking about. I'll pull the camera up so you can see it. There's that Richmond Railway Bridge, the main evacuation route, way off in the distance over here. You can see way back there. And then you have the Richmond and Petersburg Railway Bridge, the major Confederate supply route, which is right there. And you can see it right there. Well, this takes us through Belle Isle. I hope you enjoyed the trip out here. There's not a whole lot to see as far as historic context is considered. Just one of those things that just got lost with time out here. So we're going to push off from here, go over to the American Civil War Museum of History out here in Richmond, Virginia. And we're going to create a video about that place and talk a little bit about a museum that's up in Gettysburg that needs some help. We'll catch you around on those battlefields sometime. Until next time, this is History with Waffles.